Mr. Ken Ingram?
Hey, Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was doing fantastic with you on Friday when we had supper. It was great to speak because we hadn't spoken in a while, and it's an honor for me to have you here on this impromptu podcast where I get to introduce my first ever business coach to my community, it's an honor. I'm happy you took the time to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm honored that you asked me because I'm still the best kept secret,
I believe so.
and it's amazing the amount of people lives I've changed, business owners, and their successes that I've achieved over the last 20 years. And you know, I often say my phone should be ringing off the hook, but then again, maybe that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to work with some really unique, inspiring people that are there in business for the right reasons. And some people get in business for the wrong reasons, as you well know.
And I've gotten to discover this more and more over the years. So we met. Now, are you good with dates? Because I don't remember exactly when it is that we first got to work together. Do you have an idea for when that was?
Probably around 2002.
Okay, so it's over 20 years.
Yeah, over 20 years.
Part of me did not want to admit that to myself. I was thinking it's more 10 or 15, but it's over 20. Yeah, I remember I was just starting out in business.
That's right.
I was a high school teacher by day, and I was a personal trainer, becoming physical therapist in the afternoons and weekends. And we got to meet through BNI. And very quickly, I think you took a liking to what I did, maybe a bit of me as well, and you took me under your wing. So maybe you want to discuss how that kind of all took place.
Well, I like to say that the first rule in sales is people do business with people they like, trust, and respect.
Mm.
And I think that's what the reason we ended up working together was we were able to develop that immediate like, trust, and respect. And I think I often say to people, the second rule in sales, what is that? And most people can never give me the right answer. But the second rule in sales is the same. People do business with people they like, trust, and respect. And if you go back historically, that's how business was developed.
Hmm.
It was that handshake.
Yeah.
It social media is great.
Hmm.
We can't ignore it,
Right.
but the personal touch will always be there. And imagine you trying to do your job virtually. It would be pretty challenging.
It wouldn't be as satisfying, I think, for both the customer and myself, in creating a relationship where trust is the cornerstone. And I believe it's very challenging to develop a trust based relationship exclusively online. It's doable, yeah, but
It has limitations.
it definitely does. And outside of just being in person, taking the time to do what we did Friday night, which is sit down for supper and
Yeah,
to have discussions that have absolutely nothing to do with
yeah.
business, just to see how people see everything really in their environment, how they treat the people that they're with, how they even treat the staff of a restaurant, which I believe says so much about how they'll do, right? How you do anything is how you do everything. Or is it the opposite? No, how you do anything. Yeah, it goes both ways.
It's a yin and yang, right?
Yeah.
It
So
goes both ways.
yeah, so doing business with people that that align. So you saw a bit of that when we first started, I guess.
Yeah.
That's why we're here today.
And it was the relationship.
Yeah.
The relationship was we had to get to know each other.
Yeah.
It wasn't jump in and try and sell you something. And this is another mistake that a lot of people make.
Mm.
They're trying to sell you a product. It's like going to the doctor's office. What happens at the doctor's office? The doctor says, "So why are you here? Where's the pain? What's your problem? What's your issue?" So it's a dialogue. And as you start to share where your issues are and your pain, then the doctor starts to examine you.
Mhm.
So there's a process.
Yeah.
And then they come to some conclusions. And then the conclusions say, this is how I can help you. So a lot of times, if we're just pushing products, imagine the doctor says, "Oh, how long have you had the headache? Oh, well, you should take Tylenol." You haven't solved my problem.
Right.
You've just given me a Band-Aid.
which is funny when you look at the advertisement of big pharmaceutical companies. It was exclusive to the States. Now I think we see here in Canada where they actually speak to the um, customer or the patient and they say, ask your doctor about this and this medication. So do you have clients coming to you and basically asking you to do certain things for them versus maybe listening where you're coming from and how to actually truly help them? Does that happen to you?
I would say that most people don't know what they need or want.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And again, this is why the personal relationship is so important. And it's the same thing for your business. People come to you, they don't understand what posturology is all about. And most people don't know what business training and coaching is all about.
100%.
You know, it's I go back to professional athletes. It takes 4 years to build a professional athlete, 4 years to win a gold medal.
Right.
Now, a gold medal winning athlete would not try and do it on his own or her own or their own, because
Ever. Yeah.
sometimes we have people that are transitioning. So,
Yeah.
but the point is that so many business owners, they don't apply the same advice to themselves. You started out in business and you said, hey, I think I need a coach and a trainer.
100%.
But we built the relationship. But imagine where you'd be today had you not had that advice. And I've worked with so many great business owners, restaurant owners, hip hop artists. And I remember me sharing that with you one day, and you said, "What? You're coaching a hip hop artist?"
Like you have no limits, essentially. Yeah.
There is no limits, and I did work with the Mexican government for about 9 years. Initially, you know, my background is aerospace test engineer, but it wasn't me. I wasn't flying the airplane. I was testing the structure, the systems, and everything else to make them safe for people. Business training is kind of like that too. We want to make sure that when you get into business, you do it safely, productively, and you're not going to be marginally profitable. You're going to be extremely profitable through the ideas. So it's interesting that that transition, but it's a process. And if you want to win, if you want to have a gold medal financial year, you have to do something. You can't just expect it to happen.
Do you see how the narrative of and by the way, I obviously agree with everything you said, and I know Matt does as well because we share that long-term vision where we ha we do massive action every day, knowing that we're building on a long-term plan. And so I obviously agree with you. And do you find that with social media, you mentioned it earlier, that that's a message that's getting harder to convey to people, that there needs to be that, let's say, that 4-year plan to
Yeah.
get true grit, true success?
Yeah, people are looking for a quick fix. And I say I'm not McDonald's. And you know, it's the old expression, right? What's the old expression they say? Teach a man to fish, feed him for life. Give a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day.
Right.
I want to teach you how to fish. I want to teach you how to be successful. And that could take 4, 6, 12 months.
Yeah.
It won't happen overnight.
No.
There's no short route to being successful in business. There's no short route to having a gold medal financial year. But you got to work with the right person. And I'd say my biggest problem in business is that I'm lumped into a group of trainers and coaches that aren't as skilled at the knowledge transfer. And that's really what it's about. I've got to transfer what I know
Right.
to you
Right.
for you to be successful. But then I don't let you go. And you know that. We've been friends a long time. And I often say to people, do one mandate. Do something for yourself that will help you. And you'll never see another invoice for the rest of your life. And they think I'm kidding.
And there's many examples we discussed it Friday where you essentially start working with someone and that never ends.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah. You're a true coach.
Yeah.
In that sense. So promising. Yeah. So a lot of it right now is I'll give you 3 quick tips so that you can make $10,000 in a month. Like that's kind of the narrative.
That's the
on
narrative.
social media.
Yeah.
And that's your competition. And that's why it was really important for me to sit down with you.
My perceived competition.
Right, 100%. But when you look at the market,
Yeah,
right? And
that's the
and and
market.
and they look at what's available. And Matt and I speak about this all the time, but it's deceptive. At the very least, it's deceptive if it's not fraud, to some extent.
Yeah, well, I won't go that far, but I'm glad you said it. But the bottom line is there's no quick fix, and you need to work with the right person, and it has to start with the relationship. And you have to work with somebody who cares, not just for one day, but for the longer term. And I can tell you very honestly, just like yourself, just about every single client I've worked with over the last 20 years have become part of my family.
Hmm.
They knew my late wife. They know Sylvie. Um, there's they become part of my life. But I don't let everybody into my home. Just like I don't try to coach every single person I meet. There has to be that relationship. If we don't like, trust, and respect each other, then we might as well not do business together. Because that's for me foundational.
Speak to me about the CASH acronym, which is my favorite one of the ones you've taught me. It's the one I've always remembered since we started.
Well, cash is knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. In French, it's connaissance, attitude, savoir-faire, habitude. So what's the real cash? And we know that cash is king, right?
Right, cash is king.
Well, we were born with cash. Knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. It had to be developed,
Yeah.
but it was there. We were all born with it. And when we start to realize that it's about us, that we have the cash, we're just not using it properly.
Hmm.
This is, again, the reason why we need coaches and trainers, just like athletes need coaches and trainers. We want to have a gold medal financial year. We want to win a gold medal. Well, get a coach. Get a coach to help you optimize what you already have, the knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. And in English, it starts with a K because my name is Ken.
That's right. That's why it starts with a K.
But in French, well,
Yeah, you
when it
gotta
works,
change your name. You gotta change your name for the people who speak French.
yeah. So cash, it actually spells cash, connaissance, attitude, savoir faire, habitude. But
Yeah,
it's here, it's our brain.
yeah,
So I need to transfer some of my brain to you
yeah.
in order to you to optimize more of your cash. And that's really what I'm basically doing. I'm optimizing people.
Give me a few examples because people will like the acronym and they're gonna have an idea for what each letter means. But in the realm of the work that you've done with people and that you're doing now, give me like maybe two examples for each of the letters so we really have a good understanding.
Well, knowledge is what you've acquired over the many years. We all went to school, we read books, we met people along the lines of us working. And so all that accumulation of knowledge we have. The interesting thing is most of us are not using all that knowledge that we've gained. A great example would be in my case, when I was in aerospace, I was working in a department with teams of people. And all the knowledge that I'd gained over 20, well, more than 20, like 40 years, I could not put into practice because I'm working with other people.
Hmm.
As a single business owner, after I left Bombardier Aerospace at age 44 and became retired because of 9/11, I basically took all that knowledge and the experience that I had acquired and I put it into practice.
Hmm.
And that's how I became very successful as a coach and a trainer. So that's knowledge. So I often say to people, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how well you use your knowledge today.
Huh.
And quite often they'll give me an answer 6. And that's typical of most people. So imagine for the moment you could tap into all that knowledge that you've gained, use it more productively and efficiently, how things would be different. Now, the next thing is so knowledge, attitude. The problem with attitude is people don't understand how powerful it is. And there's two types of attitude. There's a positive mental attitude and a confident mental attitude. The positive mental attitude is what you believe. The confident mental attitude is right here. It's what you project. If you don't believe, how can you project it? And if you can't project it, how are you going to get people to like, trust, and respect you?
Would you say that's where you find more issues with people versus if we even just take the K and the A, um, versus people actually knowing what they're doing, the confidence they have in maybe, bringing it
It's a
out there?
combination.
Gotcha.
You need to tap into the knowledge, the attitude, and now the skills come up.
Hmm.
Now we've acquired a lot of skills over the time that we've been alive, but are we using them in the most effective manner? So I'm going to go back to a professional athlete, perhaps the swimming. So they're very good. They can do the breaststroke, the front stroke, the whatever stroke. They're quite good. But can they win against competitors? And most of the time, the people that win, it's by fractions of a second. So what do we got to do? We've got to optimize that skill level. You already have it. It just needs to be optimized. And the last thing is habits.
I love I actually thought you'd be laughing before you were to discuss it, and that's exactly what happened. Tell me, what's your thought?
Our habits are sort of we are our own worst enemy. We are our own worst enemy. And I like repeating that because if we could develop better habits, more consistently, how things would be so different. So the four things really working in combination to help you to become more successful. And it really doesn't take that much.
Right.
But it doesn't happen overnight. It will take, you know, what they say is it takes 60 to 90 days to change habits and behavior.
Hmm.
People think they can do it overnight, or people think they can do it in 1 month. No, it's going to take 60 to 90 days, 3 months, which is why I specialize in pace-based learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Talk to me more about this, and we'll go back to the CASH acronym. There's a
Well,
few things, but this is really important because a lot of the programs we're seeing right now on the internet are based on this quick everything, right? Quick results will change you overnight. You'll change your business in your life overnight. And none of this obviously makes any sense to anyone who's thinking for 2 seconds.
let's look at your business as a posturologist.
Right.
Uh, you can show people how to do things right.
Yeah.
Is that going to fix them?
It's a process.
It's a process.
Right.
But yeah, the quick fix, there is no quick fix in life.
Right.
There's a quick hamburger, but maybe not the best hamburger.
It's not maybe the quality that we're looking
It's
for.
not the quality you're looking for.
I start people off and I tell them it took you a year to learn how to stand upright. So at your age, a few years later, I don't see how it's going to take less time. So I think preparing people for what's to come before I even choose to either work with them or not, based on just A, are they a great candidate for what I do? Do I sense the motivation for them to do the few things that I ask? And then essentially, and I tell practitioners that I train, you choose your clients.
Yeah.
They don't choose you. I guess you work the same.
Same way. It's there has to be that relationship, that like, trust, and respect. Otherwise, there's no deal on the table or opportunity to work with me. The other interesting thing is, I would say that people don't realize how important all those aspects are and how they fit through in combination. I'm working with a golf coach right now, and the first lesson wasn't me hitting the ball.
Right.
It was put your hands together. I want to see how the wrist works, because that's the key, and how you hold the golf club.
Right. We're nowhere near hitting a ball.
Nowhere near hitting a ball.
Yeah.
And when I do training and coaching,
Yeah.
it's the same thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to teach you sales until lesson 4. We're going to talk about the economy, what's changed in the world.
I love that.
We're going to talk about your confidence, your positive mental attitude, your confident mental attitude. We're going to talk about goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
This goal set, they never taught us this in school,
No.
how to set goals, but it's foundational in business.
and to the habits that you develop, right? Why would you develop certain habits where there's effort required if you're not going to have an objective and a goal, right? So
So people think, when are we going to start? When are you going to start teaching me to sell? After your headspace is in the right place. We get to the fourth session. They said, "Oh my God, it's all about me." Well, yeah, it's always been all about you. Now your headspace is in the right place. Now let me teach you how to sell.
when you look at people's objectives, I'll never forget this, and I tell everyone the story when I speak about you. You sat me down in your living room. You had the whiteboard,
Yes.
and you asked, "So what's your goal?" And at the time, I had never made six figures, and to me, that was very elusive, and it was a threshold, and it was an objective, and I said, "Okay, well, I'd like to make $100,000." And obviously that was worth a lot more back then than it is now, but it was the idea, right? It was the idea of achieving something that I hadn't achieved yet. And quickly we put that aside and we said, okay, well, where are you at now? What is it you're doing? And basically, how are you going to move forward? And the knowledge part I want to go back to, because that's something that at this point in my career is really why people come and see me, and it's what allows me to teach internationally. It's the knowledge part. Is it just me, or I get the feeling that that's not a value that a lot of people necessarily have in business, which is to be at the forefront, at the cutting or the bleeding edge of, and being able to provide essentially something unique, where, in terms of that competition, especially in this economy, where essentially you become the reference, and maybe when times get tougher, you're still of value to so many people, versus if what you're doing is something that everyone else is kind of doing. Is that something you're seeing?
I would say that people have forgotten how to dream.
Hmm.
They don't set their goals high enough, stretch goals. They don't understand how we live in an amazing world that anybody can become anything, but they don't realize how much potential they have. Each and every one of us has underused potential.
How do you get people to see that? Like, what are the strategies you use?
One of the interesting things is the minute somebody says, "Okay, I want to work with you, Ken," they call me the next day. We haven't even started any programs or anything. And they say, "You know something? I'm already doing things differently.
I hear you. Yeah, I totally get that.
We haven't even started, and I'm already inspired and motivated because I've made the decision
Yeah.
to do something that I should have done a long time ago."
And it is a decision because it's final. And something I've learned along the way is that there's a difference between choice and decision. When you make a choice, you can always go back to another choice, right? Chocolate or vanilla ice cream. One day it's chocolate, one day it's vanilla. You don't decide upon an ice cream that you have on any given day, because the next day you might have a different option, a different choice. But when you decide, it's final. And what I've learned from working with you is that once I made a commitment to just doing things a certain way and leveraging off of what my parents had taught me, essentially, a lot of the great values I got from my parents, but applying them more to a business context, and even just like not being as shy. I was very shy. People won't even, like, people are going to listen to podcasts thinking that's absolutely impossible, considering how I am with people and even what I choose to put online and the risks that I even take in putting certain pieces of material online,
Yeah.
specifically politically. And they'll figure, no, it's impossible that you were. I was, before I met you and Conrad. Like, essentially meeting people, and the in-person aspect is huge,
Yeah.
because online nowadays people can feel very big in their living room typing on a keyboard, but at some point you got to show up in front. I believe, right, real life is you got to show up in front of people, shake hands, and stand for something. And whether it's what you do for a living, political or economical opinions, but essentially saying, okay, well, this is where I'm at right now. um how do you help people, like, bring that out of them? Like, obviously when you start working with them, you say there's already a bit of a shift.
Yeah. It's part of my program. But one of the interesting things you touched on was change.
Mm.
And a lot of times we say people are afraid of change. It's not that people are afraid of change, it's that They don't want to be changed.
Hmm. That's huge.
That's
that,
that's
that hit me right here. I was
it's the that's it's the real issue.
damn. Yeah.
If they were actually afraid of change,
Right.
they would dress the same every day.
Yeah.
They would eat the same food.
Yeah.
We would all look the same.
Yeah.
But the reality is, no, we don't. We do change our clothes. We do eat different foods. We just don't like to be changed. We're happy in our comfort zones. And this is where a coach and trainer brings the value. This is where a posturologist brings the value, a marketing expert, et cetera, et cetera. So many different trades in business make a difference in combination. It's not one thing that's going to get you there.
Right.
It's a combination of things that are going to get you there.
You've mentioned the economy and how times and have changed. And I look back at getting to know you over 20 years ago and right now.
You've our recent supper together. You saw how I've changed.
Yeah.
I've changed as well because I believe in that too.
Right. Tell me how, because yeah.
Well, I remember if I go back historically, my late wife used to call me her shy showman. So could I stand up in front of a room of 1,000 people 20 years ago? Probably not. But I had to learn how to do it. It was part of my job, part of my business. It's not always about one-on-one training and coaching.
Right.
I also have to work with groups, and sometimes I have to give workshops in front of people. I had to teach myself and also get some training and coaching from my colleagues and other people, get certified in different programs in order to deliver them. So I had to increase my knowledge. I had to use all the potential that I had that was just sitting there. And I would see in many cases, I didn't know it was there. But I learned that it was there and I learned how to get it out. And that's why I talk about knowledge transfer.
Right.
People taught me how to tap into my underused potential. And I think one of the greatest things that I love about the work that I do is when I teach you how to sell. I sell as well. I'm not teaching you just a program. I'm teaching you something that I already taught myself and learned and became certified in. Leadership. The same program I teach you, I've used for my own business. Mm-hmm. Strategy. The same program, milestones, that I use for my business, I teach you. A lot of people in training and coaching, they're not using the tools. They're just trying to teach you by the seat of their pants.
100%. And they haven't done it for themselves, quite frankly, most often.
So I practice everything that I teach. So for me, I think that gives me more, it's more powerful and adds more value. And one of the reasons why people like to work with me, because there's a process and system. We know exactly where you are. And a lot of times we'll get up to, if we're doing a 12 module program, we'll get up to module 4. And you'll say to me, when are we going to do such and such? Well, actually, that's the next module. How did you know that? I know what you need.
Right.
Because I'm the real deal. I'm not teaching you same you went to school. We went to school for 4 months and we had a couple of months off and then we went back to school. I teach the same way. Because you can't learn how to be skilled at anything if you're not learning it, practicing it, learning it, practicing it. And that's how they taught us in school.
And that is different in terms of how you do things, because I remember having homework to perform.
Sorry about that.
No, but I think,
I'm kidding you.
There's a whole debate nowadays whether it's like if kids should have homework or not.
Yeah.
I do agree that there should be consolidation of things that you're taught, whether it takes the format of homework or you need to put it in practice. So whatever you want to call that, whether
I'm going to tell you what you call that.
What do you call that?
Repetition.
Yeah.
Is the motive of all learning.
Yeah.
Repetition. If you don't practice what you learn, good luck.
And I remember that for each module that we did together, there was some of that. And that's the difference between coaching and reading a book. There's there's so many people in coaching or in and around the coaching industry right now that claim that they're experts because they've read so many books. And that's how they teach their clients to perform, is to say, well, you got to read this book, got to read that book. So first
It's
off,
sort of like an academic.
and and they essentially pride themselves on how many books they've read.
Yes.
And Matt's laughing because we know exactly who we're both thinking of. And I'm thinking, what are you applying? What are you applying? And it's almost as if reading is pretty passive. I'm a big reader. I know you are as well. In my free time, I study. The knowledge part for me is the key, and then Matt takes care of putting me out there in terms of what I know. So my job is to know stuff.
I think you also need to be a street fighter.
Okay, like
You,
literally, or
no, not
I know I got you there.
of course not. No. It's great to read all these books.
Right.
Because that's an academic aspect.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to put it into practice. So a lot of people do read all these books, but they don't know how to put it into practice. So you have to be certain, like a bit of a street fighter. The street fighter, yes, okay, I've read the book, I know the techniques, blah blah blah. Can you actually do it? The street fighter will know how to put it into practice, enough to save his life, and maybe somebody else's.
And those techniques have to be practiced along the way of achieving mastery. It can't be you do this 3-month program with me, and once we're done, then you get to use all the stuff I taught you. What I liked about what we did is we met weekly or bi-weekly, and every time we met thereafter, there had to be something that I got from that session with you where you were using the board, and I had to use it in real life, and then we would talk about it.
So it's a bit academic.
It's almost original now.
It's a bit academic,
right?
And street fighter. Learn.
Hybrid. Yeah.
Learn, put it into practice. Learn, put it into practice.
Interestingly enough, that's how we teach posturology. So we get people in a room for 4 days where they get to learn some of how the body works. They get to test how the body works. And then they have to leave after 4 days and practice on people. And I tell them, you need to take on 3 people. Take on people that you trust, that you like, and that you know you'll be able to make mistakes with without losing self-confidence. But build your skill set on those people. And when you come back for level 2, you're going to appreciate so much more what we do. So you see, without even me realizing, this is something I put in practice and that we were using together over 20 years ago.
Well, like I said, we were born with superpowers, the curiosity, the enthusiasm, and all that, the ability to learn. And for some reason, as we get older, we have forgotten that we have all these superpowers that can be harnessed and utilized and used to help us to become more successful. And a lot of times you look at other people and you say, why are they so successful? Why not me? Yeah, completely agree. Why not you?
Right.
Why aren't you doing stuff that they're doing? And you look at some of these people and you say, wow, they're not really good, are they? And you suddenly look at yourself and you say, that should be me. I just don't know how to pull it out of me, how to harness it, how to tap into it.
So much of it is imitation too. And we spoke about this on Friday, but looking back on the work that we did, I remember some of the lessons, some of the technicalities. But like, as I said to you on Friday, what sticks with me nowadays was so much of just how you behaved. And I think some of that
professionalism.
Yes.
That's what you keyed on. That how professional I was in everything I did with you. Absolutely.
And with others, right?
Yeah.
Because we would hang out with other business owners, and you would be so gracious to present me to so many of the people in terms of what I did professionally, but just in terms of myself,
Yes.
getting to know other people.
Yes.
So, a business coach, but yet a networker, and somehow for me, those could be easily combined.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the standards that I hold myself accountable to now and the ones I teach to my practitioners, so much of that was just observation, just assessing how you address people in a room, how you present people. From like, one thing that was always awkward for me was if I have two people in front of me that don't know each other, and how to go about, like, it sounds really ridiculous, but that was always a bit of a, how do I go about, like, oh, Chantal, this is Marc, and how do I make them comfortable in the fact that I know both of them, but they don't know each other? And for some people that might come very easily. To me, that was challenging. And I've seen you and others do it in a way where I thought, I'm just going to do how they do it. Like, I'm just going to do it like Ken does it.
I actually went out with a colleague of mine downtown to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I didn't want to go out that night. And he said, Ken, I want to go out with you to see how you do it.
Hmm.
And I went downtown with him, and I met an amazing client, um, a young lady who had started up in business, had amazing business, and just chatting with her and sharing different ideas, she said to me, okay, you've convinced me that you're the guy I need to work with. It took about 6 months, and she turned into just an amazing client. She did 3 mandates with me,
Huh.
and then she even hired me to work with her employees. And I remember her saying, that was the best module. And then we do another session. That was the best session. It was, yeah, but it was great. And I took her from about $100,000 business to over $1 million. Just an amazing success story. But I have a lot of success stories like that
Yeah.
that I'm very proud of.
And some of it is the number, which I remember us speaking about, what was the initial objective, and it was making six figures. But so much of it is more than that. And one aspect I wanted to touch upon was work-life balance. Um, there's a lot of narratives going on right now about how it's either, so you've got some coaches right now that tell you right off the bat, listen, if you're in business, that's not going to happen. You essentially have to literally kill yourself at work. And then you've got others that promote something where it's going to be so easy. If you hire me as a coach, you're going to have the work life balance. I obviously want to hear your take on this.
It's not that simple, but the bottom line is you have to balance in your personal relationship and balance in your business. If your business isn't balanced, it's going to affect your personal relationship. And if your personal relationship isn't balanced, it's going to affect your business. And it's one of the things that I promote a lot of in my training and coaching, that balance. Because I'll teach you a lot of stuff about yourself as well, but not only your business.
Mhm.
So there has to be those two. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. But when we talk, if we talk about goal setting, you'll set goals for your personal life, but you also set goals for your business life.
Right.
And I believe when you do both of those things, everything starts to come together nicely.
Hmm.
But if you don't set goals for your personal life, you're not going to get there. If you don't set goals for your business, you're not going to get there. You need the two, both of them, to be working together in harmony. I've mastered that in my business. Because I've mastered it in my business, I have the ability to teach you how to do that.
There was always a blend for you between the two, and that's something I've obviously also very much learned from and applied. There never seemed to be a division,
No,
right? So we would meet entrepreneurs while having wine and eating good food. And, I'd come over to the house and have supper with you and Linda, and we would talk about business, but we would talk about other stuff. So,
because of that balance. It's
yes.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, associating with people that have the same mindset,
Have the same
whether
mindset.
it's your life partner or friends.
Yeah.
Um, would you say a lot of people that you work with have to clean house on that account in terms of just who they're surrounded by and if it matches or not necessarily with where they're going?
As a coach and trainer, I can't tell you how to run your life.
Okay. Yeah.
What I can tell you is that you've got to be mindful of who you want to be. And going back to your comment about me and my professionalism, you've never seen me otherwise because that's who I am. I come here today in a suit, in a shirt, this is who you've always known me as.
100%.
You won't typically see me in a pair of jeans unless I'm in the woods in the country with
Right.
a chainsaw. And I had a cottage for over 25 years. And I remember one of my friends got sick and he was in the hospital. And I left work and I showed up in the hospital in a suit and tie. And he looked at me. You own a suit?
Ah, okay, so he didn't know that side of you.
Didn't so I guess I'm a bit of a chameleon in a
I
sense
love
that
it.
when I was out in the country, in my cottage, snowmobiling, all-terrain vehicle, t-shirt, pair of jeans, that was my playtime. In the city, it was business. Business for me is very important, but also making sure that you're authentic
Mhm.
in everything you do. And I often tell my clients, I said, you're not going to see me coming to a meeting with you in a pair of jeans. It's not going to happen. You'll see me dressed appropriately for my profession. Because I looked at it's also a sign of respect. I remember a story I heard from a client, somebody I knew who was working with another coach and trainer, and he said the person would always come to the meeting with his father in a suit and tie. And one day the father asked the coach and trainer to meet with his son, so he showed up in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. And the son said, "Excuse me, every time you've come to meet with my father, you were in a suit and a tie. You've come to meet me to talk about some issues that I'm dealing with, personally and professionally, and you're showing up in a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. Does that mean you have less respect for me than my father?"
It begs the question, eh?
Beg the question.
Yeah.
So I am who I am, authentic all the time. You can dress however you like.
Right.
That's not That's your business.
Right.
That's fine. I'm not seeking to change people. I'm seeking to teach them how they can be better, how they can make better choices in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
how they can be more successful consistently, how they can use their cash more effectively, the knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits, how I can transfer my business beliefs, my ideas to them. I'm not seeking them to change them. I'm hoping that they'll take the knowledge, the attitude, the skills, and habits, take those ideas, make the decisions for themselves. They can choose to be a great person, a great entrepreneur, or a crappy one. It's their choice. Actually, all the people I've worked with are great entrepreneurs. None of them are crappy.
You don't give them a chance.
I don't give them. Yeah,
And
it's
you wouldn't even work with them to begin with if you didn't see that
yeah.
this is something that could develop.
I'm contagious.
Right. I
You
agree.
you spend enough time with me, I guarantee
100%. That's what happened with me.
something's going to rub off.
Yeah.
I guarantee something. You will change
Yeah.
because it's impossible not.
Yeah.
But anything I teach, even if I teach you one idea, that one idea has the power already to make a big difference.
And it's long lasting and it doesn't even depend on how often, like, we hadn't spoken in a while. We see each other on social media. We might comment on each other's publications. So it just goes to say, to what you're saying, it doesn't even need to be like we speak weekly, um, because so much of it is foundational and powerful that it literally just sticks with you. So I can see how for other clients that you've worked with, it's the same. And if they do have questions, I know for myself, I'll always feel comfortable shooting you a message and being like, Ken, I've got this decision coming up. You know what? Can we just shoot the shit and like go over it? Because this is where I'm at. And professionals that your clients need to work with, where you assess their situation and you think, my gosh, you haven't looked at this aspect of your business or that aspect of your business, because I know you have a huge network and obviously you've developed it over the years of people just like yourself.
I'm going to share an interesting story.
Yeah.
Years ago, I met a young fellow. We had moved from Texas to Montreal, It was one of my clients that introduced us. We went to a sugar cabin outing, and he brought his two sons and his wife, and we're having a conversation. And I said, "So what business?" I'm very curious about people.
Yeah.
So what business are you in? He says, "Oh, I'm a pastor. I've come to open a new church here in Montreal." Oh, okay, pretty cool. Because a lot of the churches are closing down and they're turning them into condominiums.
Yeah. That's the trend.
But I said, you know something? I'd like to get to know you a little better. So he came to my office and told me about what he wanted to do, and I gave him a whole bunch of ideas, and he put them in. 4 months later, he had put them into practice. He had opened his church, much to my surprise. Another 4 months later, he had doubled the number of churchgoers. And then he called me up one day. He said, I have to go down to Orlando to a Dragon's Den competition with other ministers to win $20,000 for my church, US. I said, great. Come over to the office. I'll spend an hour with you. So I said, so what are you planning on doing he was like all over the map. And I said, okay, well, forget that. Here's what we're going to do. I remember when we first met, you talked to me about why the cross was on Mount Royal, how the reasons the church wasn't about the building, it was about people, the gathering, very socializing and those beliefs as well, very strong beliefs. And I'm not personally very religious, by the way, but I worked with him anyway. He's a very good friend of mine today, and so and we talked about mental health and how so many of us don't know our neighbors, and it's still true today, and it's even worse. And I think COVID uh, made that even more pronounced. So anyway, we crafted together a little speech that he would deliver, and he went down to. I said, "Now I want you to go home, practice it in front of the mirror. If you get hung up on any words, I want you to change the words." But we had pretty much done what we had to do, and you've got to do it within 3.5 minutes. Period. No if, buts, or maybes. He went down to Orlando. He won the money. I spent 1 hour with him.
An
20,
hour
20 grand US.
for 20 rent. Yeah.
He
That's a
says,
that's a good.
yeah. He says, how do I pay you back? I said, take me to lunch.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
the point is that I said, so how did the other ministers do? And he said, well, they were all over the map. He had laser focus. He knew exactly what to do, how to deliver it. I taught him how to deliver it, make his points. And that's the key in business. Like, trust, and respect, positive mental attitude. I got him in that right space.
Yeah.
The confidence, delivering it. He was already doing the ministry, but it's one thing to do the ministry. It's another thing to really deliver the message. Well, he delivered that message with pinpoint accuracy. But I have so many stories just like that.
Yeah.
Where I've taught people how to do things pinpoint accurately and win. But you got to win for the right reasons. It wasn't so much about the $20,000 US. It was about what he could do with the money to help people. And it doesn't matter whether you're a not-for-profit or a profit business. You've got to be in business for the right reasons. And a nonprofit is a business, and a profitable business is a business. And as a nonprofit, if you're not conveying the right messages and doing the right things, people will stop giving you money because they won't trust you. It's foundational trust.
I want to talk about scaling. A lot of the people that you meet in business might be what we consider small and medium business owners, and I know that that's a huge, like, continuum. Something that to this day I'm thinking about is, okay, I'm performing tasks. I remember us having this discussion, Ken, 20 years ago, where I am at this point to this day performing tasks that do not fit in my genius zone. Okay. And I'm performing less of those than I used to. Essentially working with Matt, who produces all the social media content, the strategy behind it. That's already obviously one example of me not trying to put together a post for Facebook to promote the next course I'm hosting. But there's a bunch of tasks to this day that I'm performing, and I'm thinking as I'm performing them, how do I know when it's time for me to start essentially maybe having a virtual assistant, or just like I've had an accountant forever, because as an ink company, it's not even a question of, as if I'm gonna sit down and try to, work the books out. So
Well,
I've listened to you to some
that would
extent,
be a horrible idea, by the way,
which yes, which I've and it's been
because the question becomes the value of your time at this point.
yes. So please touch upon that, because I know it's going to help a lot of people.
Most people don't know the value of their time. I'll say, so what's the value of your time? Oh, $25 an hour. Why isn't it 50?
Right.
Are you doing your own accounting? Oh, yes, I can't afford an accountant. Okay. But if we establish the value of your time at maybe $100 an hour, why would you be doing your own accounting?
So that's really how, yeah, you look at how much is it that you on the market, how much are you worth per hour, and then
Start,
just make yourself busier doing that.
you've got to, but you have to figure it out.
Right.
You have to say, where can I make the money? Where can I use my talents and abilities in the most effective manner? Most people never ask that question of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they're actually wasting time, and time is money. Cash is still king.
Right.
So you have to learn that this is what I'm good at. This is where I make the money, helping people, making a difference, versus doing my books.
Or building my own website, or the list can go on and on.
It goes on and on, but you've got to make that shift in business. So going back to your example, and I think this is where you have to start looking and prioritize and say, and I guess it's time we got together again.
I think so. I think so. We figure, okay, I've grown so much, but
You're at that
there's new
you're at that point where it's a good place for us to sit down again and
100%.
have some more meetings and talk about some of these issues.
Yeah.
So I can get you back. So you're sort of like you're posturologist. You're sort of out of alignment right now.
More than I'd probably like to admit. Yeah, 100%. And I can maybe do more than I used to with the system, but the system still faces challenges that are new challenges.
But you're not out of alignment physically.
Right.
You're out of alignment from the business sense. We just need
Yes.
I just need to put you back on those rails.
Right. 100%.
And this is where getting back together and having some of those conversations and relooking at some of those issues
We'll definitely do that.
can have a lot of value and potential. So that's the key. So that's where you're at. So I don't believe that you need a coach and a trainer for your entire business.
Right.
I believe that you need a coach and a trainer at a point in your business
Mm-hmm.
to optimize the business and get you on the rails going down the right track. And then that coach and trainer just needs to be there in the background whenever you need them.
Right. Which is truly what a coach is when you really look at how this works, right?
But a lot of people, they don't look at it that way, but that's just how I look at it.
Yeah.
I'm not there I'm not there to take money from you. I'm there to teach. And I guarantee you're going to make more money than me, by the way. Whatever you pay me.
Right. Oh, in terms, and that's where it becomes an investment. 100%. I believe that. I believe that.
And it's year after year. Whatever you've invested in working with me,
yeah,
initially or in the beginning, or at some point, you're going to be making. It's compounding.
That's what I've seen over the years. Yeah, using the same foundational principles and doing probably more over the years of what you've always taught me, and getting more comfortable with that. And there's a reason why we're speaking now. It's because I'm, the way life works. I'm at the point where I need more Ken in my life. So yeah. Where can people find you if they want to get to know about you and about what you can do for them in their business?
Before I answer that question,
Yes.
I'm going to go back to an interview I did a few years ago. And the interviewer said, Ken, you're like the click. And that's what he did. He did like that. And I said, that's a good one. I think I'm going to use it. I'm like the click. Yes, you can reach me at 514-668-2320. That's my phone number. You can send me a text to set up a meeting. The first meeting's free. I like to get to know people, to share ideas, to see how we can work together. So that's the best way. You can send me an email, but easiest thing, give me a phone call, 514-668-2320, or send me a text to set up a meeting. I saw the podcast with Matt, and I'm interested in learning more about what you could potentially do to help me. If you've made Matt as successful as he is today, I think you're a good bet.
Chances are you can help so many people that are willing to be coached, which I think everyone can benefit from what you and I do. Not everyone is ready.
Yeah, but it's an investment.
It really is. On all accounts.
People say, "Oh, it's going to cost me." No, it's an investment.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ken.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, Matt, and I thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to having up our follow-up conversations now, getting you back in alignment, and getting you to that next step in your business. And a lot of people, often find a lot of people in business, they're afraid to take that next step. They've gotten to a certain point in their business, and then they start to say, what do I do next?
Matt and I have a mission. We share a common goal, and we're definitely always looking at how we can get there with just essentially faster, but it's not even about speed. It's just in better shape and how we can impact more people.
In business, it's not about how fast you go.
Yeah.
It's about, again, using your talents and abilities in the most effective manner, and having the business that you want.
Right. Yeah.
But if you haven't defined the business that you want, how will you even know when you get there? How will you know that you're satisfied? You're never going to know.
No.
So you got to take the time to define that. And this is where, again, coaching and training comes about, because most of us don't ask the right questions. Your coach and trainer starts to ask you questions that you've never even thought about. Now you're being challenged to come up with the answers. And a good coach and trainer should not give you the answers automatically.
Right.
A good coach and trainer should help you to, just like swimming. Okay, you got to drown a little.
Yeah, I remember us going through that.
Then
not literally drowning, because people are going to think you actually no. But I remember struggling a little bit
to
as
come
you
up
were
with
asking.
the answer.
100%. Yeah.
Because I always know the answer.
Yes.
I always know the answer, and eventually I will tell you the answer.
Right.
But I want you to come up. You tell me what you think you should do, or what you not really think, because it's more about feel. It's about that emotion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you feel you want to do?
Yeah.
Share that with me. Then, if it's not right, I guarantee I'm going to tell you.
No
but
doubt.
if it makes sense,
yeah,
I'm going to say, that sounds great. Why don't we try that? Try it out over the next couple of weeks and see how it works out. And then we'll tweak it. I'll teach you how to tweak it. If I give you the answer, again, I go back to that example of, if you give a man a fish, or a woman a fish, or a person a fish, because people are changing their what they were born with to these days, and that's okay. But the point is, if you give a person a fish, you feed them for a day. But if you teach them how to fish, you feed them for life. And that's really, really important today, is that we've got to teach people how to be more self-sufficient in order for them, going back to the balance, to get more out of life.
Right. It goes back to that.
Than what they currently have.
Thank you for helping me how to fish. and we'll do this soon enough.
Well, thank you for being an amazing client and friend,
Hmm.
because it's got to be, for me, as you well know, both.
Yeah.
It's not just a client relationship. We have to have that friendship, that relationship. Otherwise, we're not going to do business together ever. But we both win when we take that approach to business.
Thank you, sir.
I'm the click.
Click with a K. Click with a K.